Hello everyone, and welcome back to Canal Sidings for the first video that I've actually managed to put together for 2017. It hasn't been because I've not been doing anything. The reason for the delay is that I can't get into my room in the really cold weather because it's just too cold in here to sit and make movies and do modelling, so I tend to decamp to the dining room table, and completely impossible to do any videos in there because it's just too noisy. My wife manages to make noises all the time, even when she thinks she's not doing it. Anyway, I haven't been idle all this time. I've got a couple of fronts that I've been working on. The first is something that I mentioned some time ago, and that is that I needed to prepare some wagons for Canal Sidings, because none of my wagons actually had the right couplings on, and none of them also had any way of being detected on my TOTI detectors. So what I've been doing is sorting out a batch of wagons for use here, and these are the first two that I've done. I have done more, and I'll show you some more, but these were the first two that I did. So the fitting of the Spratt and Winkles shows warts and all on here. What I have got up here, if I'm lucky, forgot to pick it up before I started. Yes, there we go. Is an original Spratt and Winkle coupling, which is on the end there. If I put my hand behind it, you can probably see it better. Now, I didn't particularly like these because they're just too big, and the suggested mounting was by, if you can see it, where that hook comes up, there's actually a slot cut in the headstock of the wagon, and the coupling is fitted by effectively taking a chunk out of the floor, although I managed to avoid it on this wagon, which is a Lima example, but on most Bachmann and Dapol wagons you'd have to take a lump out of the floor because the floor is level with the bottom of the headstock. So I didn't particularly like those. I tried them, they worked well, but I didn't like them. Modern Spratt and Winkle couplings have another option. This is a modern Spratt and Winkle coupling. The one I showed you just now is missing its chain, but this is a modern Spratt and Winkle coupling, which, as you can see, is quite a lot smaller. Let me put the two side by side. Not easy to do this in 3D space and get them close together. Not very good at this. Okay, so you can see the difference in size between the hooks. This one being the one I don't particularly like and I'm not using. And also, there is no, if I can tip it up the right way, there's no slot in the headstock because the hook doesn't actually come through it. So that I quite liked when I read up again on Spratt and Winkle couplings, and I decided that my first attempt at using KDs was unsuccessful, and so I have come back now to using Spratt and Winkles. They do have advantages, if you like, because the fact that they have this little dropper wire, this little dropper here hanging down, sort of makes it look a little bit like a 3-link coupling, but there's no equivalent of this hook that sticks out of the end, but it doesn't stick out too far. Okay, I will go into how they work later on, but what you get when you buy Spratt and Winkle couplings is something like this. This is the fret of coupling hooks. They don't come painted black. if you want to see what they look like before they're blackened, there are a few on that side that have only got the hook blackened. I have decided now that I blacken both sides of the hook and both sides of the paddle. That side hasn't got, sorry, I blacken both sides of the hook and one side of the paddle. The other side of the paddle I don't blacken because it's completely out of sight. That is one set of Spratt and Winkle couplings. There are, God, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 32 couplings on there, and there are another 32 couplings here, which gives me enough to do 32 wagons. And this is the plate that is new to the coupling, which fits up under the wagon and is where you hang the coupling from. The great advantage I find of these new couplings is that what you can do is you can build them first. Got that the right way up? No, that's the right way up. You can actually build them before you mount them on the wagon. And as you can see, the paddle is the weight, and it's what lifts the hook up to hit the bottom of the bar, and the dropper wire, sorry, the dropper chain is made of iron wire, which allows it to be attracted to a magnet. And that's how they work. They pull down to uncouple. This one doesn't happen to have its chain on yet. I will fit the chain before I fit it to a wagon. But the method of construction is that you use the plate and you solder a piece of wire through 2 holes in it, which you then drop the hook over and just turn the ends over. I stick a piece of, I think it's 40 thou plasticard in there and bend the ends around that so that it doesn't jam the hook solid. And you also solder this piece of wire, which is the one that is actually between the buffers, and is part of the coupling operation. So that's a brief rundown on what Spratt and Winkles look like and how that, and generally which parts of them move. As far as how they fit to wagons, these 2 wagons are the first 2 that I've done. So therefore they show the fitting warts and all. The next batch of wagons actually has a far better overall appearance because I've done the same thing all the way through. This was the very first wagon I did, and as you can see, I had failed to blacken the well, you might not be able to see, but I failed to blacken all of the brass, and because I failed to blacken it all, it was hard to blacken afterwards. But you can see that the floor of that wagon, I hope you can see the floor of that wagon is actually flat, and the couplings are simply, the plates of the couplings are simply super glued on. So fitting the coupling is very easy. You do have to make the wagon floor completely flat by taking off the old couplings and filing all the bits away, but I don't find them too difficult. The most difficult part of the whole operation is these chains. They drive me mad. I can't get that one right. They drive me mad, and that one I think has already lost a link, because if you don't do them up 100% perfectly, now that one hasn't lost a link, that one's alright. It's the one at the other end, the one at this end, that's actually already managed to lose a link. And it is really difficult to close those links up and make them. That's the bit I find the hardest. And links ping everywhere. After you've worked on a few wagons, you then go round the work area and looking on the floor to see how many you've lost. Over a period of 2 days, building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 couplings, I managed to lose 7 links, and we found 6 of them. So but you have to make the links yourself, so there's a bit of a stigma in losing them because you've wasted your time as well. So that's a little bit about how Spratt and Winkles are fitted to wagons. I don't want to waffle on too much. What I'll do is I will attempt to show how they work in another little video. But just one more thing before I go on to that is locos I don't fit Spratt and Winkles to because it's quite difficult. I simply fit a bar, and usually you can screw it where the original coupling went, which is what I've done with this loco, and have a bar at each end. One more thing before we go to the demonstration of how it works is how do I put them together. Now what I have here is a little box full of goodies. I'll come back to that piece of track in a minute. That's my little pot of links. I've made 3 jigs basically, and that. And these 3 jigs, this one is to allow me to actually build the soldered part of the coupling. This sits in here without the hook. The plate sits down in there, and you fit the wire around that piece, so you can solder it on easily, having already fitted the wire to make the staple, which is very easy because it holds itself in place. But the wire that goes underneath the coupling, I use this jig which allows me to bend it and put it in. Just made out of bits of MDF stuck together, nothing clever. This is what I use to initially bend the wire. And then this jig helps me to simply set the angle of the, if I can get a hold of it, difficult when the coupling's assembled, it allows me to try and set the angle of the hook against the paddle. They suggest about 20 degrees, it's only so that they don't get caught up. And the last one, well, there's also this one, as I said, which is just a piece of 40 thou thick plasticard, which I slide underneath there when I'm bending when I'm bending the wires over. And the last piece is this jig, which sits on the rails and allows you to set coupling height, and it should sit such that the bar, I can't seem to get it where you need it, there it is. Now there's not much light on it because the light is being obscured. Why am I losing the light? Such that the bar, oh dear, this is terrible. Let me turn it round because the brightest light is on the other side. Okay, let's try it this way round. There we go. Right, the bar, if I can just tilt that way, the bar should just about ride up over that. That's the way I've set mine. And that means that all the bars are about the same height, and because the hooks rest against the bars, the hooks are all at about the same height, and the result is that the couplings work well. So let's clear this space a bit. Just get rid of all this. Oh, that was the piece I was looking for. Drop all these bits in here. Get that out of the way. A quick demonstration of the couplings working. Just take 2 wagons, doesn't matter which 2 they are. Actually, so I can't get much closer than this now. Put those out of the way. I'll get as close there as I can. Let me just turn that a little so you can see it better perhaps. I'll readjust the lighting and get the Mobius out and get right in there so you can see it. But essentially what you can do with them is they couple. Yeah, and you can push it across a magnet. There's a magnet here. By this black mark, there's a magnet. Push it across the magnet, they stay coupled. You can pull it across a magnet, they stay coupled. If you push it across a magnet, release the tension. And if you get it over the magnet, they have uncoupled, and now you can push away and you have the delayed uncoupling. You can then go back at any time, pick the magnet, cut wagon up. You can also, there's another magnet down here, you can also stop over a magnet, release the tension and pull away. So that's what they can do for you, and it means hands off shunting, which is what you must have on a shunting layout, unless you're in O gauge, in which case you might be able to handle 3-link couplings and have wagons that look true to scale, etc. Anyway, what I'll do now is I'll go away, set it up slightly differently so that you can see the couplings in action. I'll use my Mobius just before I go. This is my Mobius cam truck. Yeah, an old Hornby bolt-over wagon that fell apart, but still worked. I've re-wheeled it and fitted the Mobius at a slight angle, which I find makes it work quite nicely. You don't tend to be looking up at all, you get a better view of the track below. There's a rather hacked out piece here because I didn't realise I couldn't plug the USB lead in, and therefore had to keep taking it off of here, which it's only held on with a bit of blue tack, but it's a bit of a nuisance. And that bit of blue tack there is there on purpose because when I take this off I just drop it there and stick it on so I don't lose the lens cap. And it reminds me as soon as I go to unloading the camera of its film to put the lens cap back on. Just something that you might have seen from the last video. Everybody seems to show you their cam truck, so that's mine. Okay, so as I said, what I'll do is I'll go away now and I will set up so that you can actually see properly with good light how these couplings work using the Mobius. And I will also include some photographs of Spratt Winkles coupled so you can see the gap between the wagons. Excuse me. KDs coupled so you can see the gap between the wagons, and original tension locks. So I'll be back in a trice. Okay then, here we are set up as best I can to show you the exact operation of Spratt Winkle couplings. I'm just going to push it by hand because I have no power on here. These wagons are coupled together at the moment, and just here is where the centre of the magnet is, just here. Okay, so what I need to do is push over that magnet. Now what I'm doing at the moment is I'm coupled, I'm pushing over the magnet, and you see I've remained coupled. See the magnet attracting the droppers. So I can go both ways across the magnet without uncoupling. But if I go to the magnet, stop in the centre of it and release the tension on the couplings, they both drop. And now I can push on and leave that wagon behind. There'll be a residual in the couplings, and later I can drive along couple back up to it and pull it back across the magnet. And that is how Spratt and Winkles work. Pretty simple, really. So what I'll do now is I'll show you some photographs, and then we'll go on to the next part of this video. Hopefully it's not getting too long, but it has been a long time since the last one. And the next part of the video we'll talk a bit more about the warehouse near the canal and some more pieces of plasticard that I've cut out with my silhouette cutter. So, be back soon. And finally, for those of you who are still with me, a little bit of progress on the Canalside warehouse. As you saw last time, I cut 3 pieces like this. Well, actually 3 pieces, several pieces to make 3 pieces like this, which I then laminated together. And you can see the fact that there's a join along here, which is where I couldn't get the full height and the full width through the silhouette cutter, so I had to cut it in a different way. But it's come out alright and the alignment is fine. I did fit them together using limonene, and here is some. I actually got it in a 90 milliliter bottle, and I've decanted 25 milliliters or whatever it is into an old Humbrol liquid poly bottle which I'd washed out. I don't like these lids because they are so difficult to open that what I tend to do is just flick them on like that when I'm not using them. So rather than then spill it, or even with the lid off spill it, what I tend to do is use one of these, which is just a candle holder, and they are brilliant because it's almost impossible to knock them over. It was a tip that I got from somebody online somewhere, and the way it works is there's just a drop of blue tack around there that the bottle sticks to and therefore doesn't come out. You can buy these, they're 75p at the moment in Waitrose, but I'm sure you can get them cheaper in a charity shop, although some charity shops want to charge you even more. But anyway, this was all laminated together with limonene. The only downside to limonene is that it never stops smelling of citrus, orangey smell, which is okay, but you know, it's not too bad. And you can see it's not too aggressive. If I show you that close up, I dropped it all down here into the holes here, and it's roughened up the surface, but it really hasn't made a mess of it like liquid poly would have done, for instance, had I rubbed it along there with a brush. So limonene is definitely not as aggressive and does seem to do a pretty good job of allowing you to laminate things together. So with that fresh success, I went on to cut some more walls, and I've cut this one, which I could cut out as one piece, so I cut it 3 times and simply laminated them together, and this one, which again I cut as 3 pieces and laminated them together, all with limonene. This one goes here. Just get this, I can't seem to pick it up properly. This one goes here to step it out a little, and this one then goes on the top there to widen the warehouse a bit. So you can see it's a pretty large warehouse. What I also cut for this one was these 3 pieces, which together allow you to make up a door with a frame. Again, laminate together all made out of 10 thou material. Door goes behind. If I just grab that with my tweezers, you can then see that we have a door. A little drop of paint on it, and that'll be a perfectly good door, I hope. And that door goes in there like that. Wrong side again for holding on to it. Yeah, the tweezers are stopping it from sitting in the right place. But mounted properly, it goes in there. I can't mount it properly at the moment. So that was one thing that I've managed to do that's different. All cut out again with the silhouettes, cut right the way through and then just pushed out. So then I turned my attention to the brickwork. What I had intended to do was use this Southeastern fine cast brick paper, brick embossed plasticard. I think that's the right way around. And I had intended to use that to simply stick on like that onto the front, the right way around of course, and then cut round the windows. But there's a flaw in that argument. These windows along the tops here require lintels, and as you can see, and I've not finished yet, lots of lintels. There's 21 and 15, making so far 36 windows, so that's 36 lintels. I certainly don't want to have to make lintels by hand, and I don't really want them stuck on top of the brickwork, so I decided to cut the brickwork to fit. And I started with this Southeastern fine casts material because it's a sheet that's big enough to do the whole of one piece. And I could have simply cut these out quite easily because the lintels are very simple on those. However, when I tried to cut it with a silhouette cutter, it produces massive amounts of plastic dust. And after cutting 3 or 4 window openings, there is so much dust built up on the cutter that it doesn't cut very well and produces strange effects. And of course doesn't get all the way through the material. This is 25 thou-ish thick, and there's no way of getting through it anyway. So I hummed and hawed and played around, and then decided to go with what I used on the viaduct, which is the Slater's product, which again you can see is bricks. This is the same thickness, but this is not vac formed like that one. This is actually moulded in some way. However, there's a downside to it. It's a softer material, but it's a downside to it, and people have pointed this out before. The brick courses run out across its width, so if you try to put 2 of these end to end, i.e. joining them, the bricks don't line up, which is very annoying if you're trying to get a nice looking wall. The other side of these is they're just not big enough. That is the size of one sheet. From there to there, just add about 3 millimeters onto that, and that is the size of a sheet. It's not going to do a whole wall. So what I decided to do was cut the wall shorter, and here there's going to be an awning anyway, and here I can put a brick detail on this wall to cover up the join, which you're never going to get perfect. What that allows me to do is cut out the windows with lintels on the top, and that's exactly what I did on the correct side of this. Here we have the brick paper cut out, the brick plasticard cut out and fitted to the wall. The alignment isn't spot on, but it's pretty damn good. And then I cut some lintels, which I have to scribe as well. Now, this is going to be really difficult for you to see. Grab hold of it. That, I think the camera's going to focus on it. Oh, yes, there you go. Needed just a bit more to focus on. That is a lintel cut out and scribed. I'm not happy with the scribing yet, and I'm not happy with the size of the lintel. It does go in there, but it isn't quite right. Let me get it in. You can see it doesn't quite fit. It's just a little bit too short. Don't know if you can see that at all. It's that one there, and the lintel is a little bit too short. I'd prefer it hanging over the window rather than not hanging over the window, as that one isn't. So, lost it. I think it fell out. Well, I'm not using that one anyway. But I have drawn some more, and I'm about to cut them. So we'll be able to see. There it is. I couldn't see it for looking. The light caught it right at the time. And as you can see, that's a lot of work saved by doing that. Unfortunately, the cutter cannot cut right through this material. It's, as I say, it's about 25 thou. It gets within about 10 thou, so it does 15, maybe a little more, but there's a few thou to cut. So what I did was, rather than having to attack the front of this with a knife to cut it out, I actually cut it from the back by, in Inkscape, simply flipping the drawing horizontally, which meant that everything would line up when I flipped it back the other way, and it does. And it meant that I could easily see on the back where to cut it out, and put my knife in and make the final cuts. And it's come out as good as I could ever have hoped, I think. So I'm pretty happy with where we are, and I will be making some more brickwork and some more walls probably by the next time we see each other. So I think I've waffled on for long enough. I'm going to say goodbye now and say I'll see you next time I post something, which will probably be, I hope, in a couple of weeks, maybe 3. So bye for now everybody, and thanks for watching.